The woman collapsed on his porch at dusk. John Mercer heard the thud from inside the cabin, a sound too heavy to be wind, too deliberate to be an animal. He grabbed his rifle and opened the door. She lay crumpled against the weathered wood, one arm outstretched as if still reaching for safety. Blood stained her sleeve. Dust coated her dark hair. Her breathing came shallow and fast. He hadn't seen another soul in 3 months. John knelt beside her, checking for wounds. A gash on her forearm, deep but clean. Exhaustion more than injury had brought her down. He slid one arm beneath her shoulders, the other under her knees, and carried her inside. The fire had burned low. He laid her on his bed, the only bed, and stoked the flames back to life. She didn't wake as he cleaned the wound with whiskey and wrapped it with torn linen. Her face was young, maybe 30, but grief had carved lines around her eyes. When she finally stirred, the room had grown warm. She opened her eyes slowly, confused, then afraid. "Where am I? Safe," John said. "For now." She pushed herself upright, wincing. Her gaze swept the cabin bare walls. A single chair, shelves with tin plates and coffee. No photographs. No softness. A place where someone had stopped living. "Who are you?" she asked. "John Mercer. This is my ranch." He poured coffee from the pot, handed her the cup. "You rode hard to get here." She took the cup with trembling hands. "I didn't know where else to go." He waited. Silence was easier than questions. She stared into the dark liquid. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. "My husband, he died saving me from men who wanted our land." The fire popped. Outside, wind rattled the shutters. John studied her face, the kind of face that had once smiled easily, now carved hollow by loss. He recognized it. He'd seen it in the mirror for 3 years. "Then I'll keep you safe," he said. She looked up sharply. "Why would you do that?" "You don't know me. Your husband gave his life for you." John set down his own cup, met her eyes. "That means something." She searched his face for deception, for pity, for anything false. Found only tired honesty. "They'll come for me," she whispered. "I know." He stood, walked to the door, and slid the heavy beam across it. Then he took his rifle from above the mantel and checked the ammunition. 6 rounds. He had more in the trunk. She watched him prepare. Realization dawning. "You're getting ready for a fight." "Yes." Outside, wolves began to howl, distant at first, then closer. The woman pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. John loaded the rifle and sat in the chair by the window, facing the door. "Get some rest," he said quietly. "Morning comes early." But neither of them slept that night. Dawn broke cold and gray. John was already working when she woke, boarding the windows with planks he'd pulled from the barn, checking the shutters, counting cartridges. He moved with the efficiency of a man who'd fortified a home before. She sat up, watching him. "You've done this before." He didn't answer. She found bread and jerky on the table, ate quickly. Her arm ached, but the bleeding had stopped. "I should tell you everything." John paused, hammer in hand. "Go ahead." "My name is Rebecca Hale. My husband and I homesteaded 40 miles south, near Sweetwater Creek. Good land, water rights." She swallowed hard. "A man named Calhoun wanted it. Said we were squatters. Even though we had the deed, he sent men to drive us off." "And your husband?" "Thomas fought them at the river crossing. Told me to run." Her voice went flat. "I heard the shots behind me. I just kept running." John set down the hammer. "You have the deed?" She nodded, reaching into her dress pocket. The paper was folded, worn, stained with her husband's blood. "It's all I have left of him." He studied the document, legal, signed, dated. "They'll come for this." "I know." And they'll kill you for it. I know. John handed it back. Keep it close. That paper is your life. A horse whinnied outside. They both froze. John moved to the window, peered through a gap in the boards. A single rider approached, well-dressed, clean-shaven, wrong for this rough country, the kind of man who paid others to do his killing. Stay inside, John said. He stepped onto the porch, rifle cradled but not aimed. The rider stopped 20 feet away, smiled like they were old friends. Morning. Friend. Name's Porter. I work for Mr. Calhoun. Turn around, John said. Porter's smile widened. Now. That's unfriendly. I heard you're harboring a widow. Poor woman. All alone. Dangerous business. Protecting what isn't yours. It is now. Mr. Calhoun's a reasonable man. Hand her over. We'll settle her affairs proper. No one needs to get hurt. John shifted his weight, the rifle rising slightly. She stays. Porter's smile finally faded. You're making a mistake. Rancher. A costly one. Maybe. But it's mine to make. The two men stared at each other across the frozen ground. Porter's horse stamped nervously. You'll regret this, Porter said softly. I've regretted a lot of things. One more won't matter. Porter turned his horse, but glanced back before riding away. He'll send more than words next time. John watched until the rider disappeared beyond the ridge. Then he went inside and reloaded the rifle. Rebecca stood by the table, pale. You should turn me away. This isn't your fight. It is now. You'll die. Maybe. He set the rifle on the mantel. But I gave my word. That's all a man has. Through the window. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The first snow was coming. The snow fell for 3 days. They worked side by side, John chopping wood, Rebecca hauling water from the creek before it froze. The labor created rhythm, a language without words. He taught her to stack logs so they'd shed snow. She showed him how to stretch provisions by making broth from bones. On the third afternoon, while splitting firewood, she finally asked, Why do you live alone? John's axe paused mid-swing, for a moment. She thought he wouldn't answer. I had a wife, he said quietly, and a daughter, 4 years old. Had. Rebecca waited, understanding the shape of that word. Fever came through 3 winters ago. Took half the settlement. He brought the axe down hard, splitting the log cleanly. I couldn't save them. Buried them in April when the ground thawed. I'm sorry. So am I. He stacked the split wood, his movements precise, controlled. I stayed here because leaving felt like forgetting. But staying, he paused. Staying felt like dying slow. Rebecca hauled another log onto the chopping block. Then why help me? John looked at her directly. Your husband's sacrifice, I couldn't save mine. Maybe I can honor his... She bit her lip, fighting tears. I hesitated at the river. That's why Thomas had to fight them alone. If I'd been faster... Stop! His voice cut sharp. He chose. You didn't kill him. They did. But no! John pointed the axe handle at her. You want to honor his death. Then live. Fight. Don't waste what he bought you. The words hit harder than any blow. She nodded, unable to speak. He picked up another log. Why'd you risk everything for this land? It was ours. We built that cabin with our hands. Planted those fields. Dreamed our future there. She wiped her eyes. Thomas said a person isn't alive unless they're building something. John went still. Those could have been his own wife's words. You could still turn me away, Rebecca said softly. He shook his head. No, I couldn't. The snow fell heavier now, thick and silent. By nightfall, they were locked in. No riders could reach them. But they couldn't leave either. They stood in the doorway that evening, watching the world disappear beneath white. Rebecca's shoulder brushed his arm, not intentionally, just proximity in the narrow frame. He didn't pull away. "John?" "Yes. Thank you." He nodded once, behind them. The fire crackled warm. Ahead. Only winter and whatever would come with spring. But for now, they were safe. November passed in labor and lamplight. They settled into routines that felt older than days. John woke before dawn to tend the animals. Rebecca made coffee, strong and black. They ate breakfast in comfortable silence, then worked until their hands ached. He taught her to tie knots that held under strain bowline, clove hitch, sheet bend. She learned by watching his scarred fingers move through the rope, memorizing the patterns. "Why do I need to know this?" she asked one morning. "Because knowing how things hold together might save your life someday." She practiced until her fingers matched his movements. In the evenings, she mended his torn coat while he cleaned the rifles. Once, she started humming while cooking an old hymn her mother had sung. John paused, listening, something in his chest loosening. "You have a nice voice," he said. She stopped immediately, embarrassed. "Sorry, I forgot where I was. Don't apologize. I liked it." She resumed humming, softer now. One afternoon, John found a second rifle in the corner. "You know how to use this? My father taught me. Said a woman alone needs to shoot straight. Show me." They went outside where he'd set up tin cans on fence posts. Rebecca took the rifle, checked the sight, and fired. 3 shots. 3 cans fell. John said nothing. But that night he left the second rifle within her reach. The piece shattered on a gray morning. 3 riders appeared at the tree line, circling the property at a distance. John watched from the window, jaw tight. "Calhoun's men," Rebecca said. "Scouting. Seeing if we're still here." One rider moved closer. John opened the door and fired a warning shot into the ground. The rider's horse reared. All 3 retreated into the pines. But before they left, one man dismounted and set fire to a fence post. It burned black against the snow. John's hands clenched white on the rifle. Message received. That evening, a neighbor, old Samuel Chen from the next valley, rode up with news from town. "You're the talk of the settlement, John. They're saying you've gone soft in the head over a stranger. Let them talk. Calhoun's putting pressure on folks. Anyone who helps you loses their credit at his store. He's got the sheriff in his pocket." Samuel looked genuinely worried. "You can't win this fight alone." "Then I'll lose alone." Samuel shook his head sadly. "Your Emily wouldn't want this." John's voice went cold. "My Emily's dead. And she'd want me to do what's right." After Samuel left, Rebecca found John standing by the window, staring at nothing. "I won't let you die for me," she said quietly. He turned. In the lamplight, his face looked years older. "Yes, you will, because I won't let you die at all." She wanted to argue, to release him from this impossible vow. But the words wouldn't come. That night, she watched him sleep in the chair by the fire, rifle across his lap. His breathing was steady, his face finally peaceful. She whispered to the darkness, "I won't let you die for me." But she didn't know how to stop it. The blizzard hit without warning. One moment the sky was gray and quiet. The next, wind screamed against the cabin walls and snow came sideways, blinding and brutal. They were trapped inside for 3 days. The world shrank to firelight and 4 walls. No work to do outside, no escape from proximity. John fed the fire. Rebecca cooked what little they had. They rationed water, counted supplies, spoke in brief sentences. But on the second night, walls cracked open. "Do you think about them?" Rebecca asked suddenly. "Your wife and daughter." John stared into the flames. Every day. What were they like? He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Emily was strong. Stronger than me. Laughed easy. Worked hard. Never complained. His voice softened. Sarah was 4. She liked to sing, made up songs about everything: the chickens, the clouds, her rag doll. Rebecca's throat tightened. I'm sorry you lost them. I'm sorry you lost Thomas. They sat in silence, bound by shared grief. I'm afraid I'll forget his face, Rebecca admitted. Some mornings I wake up and can't picture him clearly. It terrifies me. John looked at her directly. Then remember what he did. That's who he was. The rest is just memory. But his choice that lives in you? She nodded, wiping her eyes. On the 3rd night, fever struck. Rebecca woke shivering despite the fire's warmth. Her skin burned hot. Exhaustion and grief, held back for weeks, manifested physically. John moved his chair beside the bed, cooling her forehead with snow-wet cloths. She drifted in and out of consciousness, hallucinating Thomas calling from the river, wolves at the window, flames climbing the walls. I'm here, John said again and again. You're safe. I won't let you go. I promised. Near dawn, the fever broke. She woke to find him asleep in the chair, his hand still holding hers. In the gray morning light, she studied his face, the lines carved by sorrow, the strength in his weathered features, the gentleness in his scarred hands. She kissed his knuckles. He woke instantly, pulling back. Rebecca. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. I'm not him. John's voice was rough. I can't replace Thomas. I don't want you to. She met his eyes. I want you to stay. Just stay. The blizzard rattled the shutters. The fire crackled low. Why are you really doing this? She asked. He looked away. Because I'm tired of being dead. The words hung between them, confession and invitation. Rebecca reached for his hand again. This time, he didn't pull away. They sat like that as dawn broke, the storm finally passing. Outside, the world was buried beneath white, but inside, something had shifted, ice melting, warmth spreading. 2 frozen hearts beginning to thaw when the sun finally broke through the clouds. They stood at the window together, shoulders touching. Spring's coming, John said. So is Calhoun. I know. But for that one morning, they allowed themselves to stand in the light. The thaw came early. Snow melted into mud. Ice broke on the creek, and the world turned soft and treacherous. They should have known false hope always preceded the worst storms. The riders came at midday, 6 men on horseback. At their head rode a man in a fine coat, flanked by a sheriff wearing a badge that meant nothing. Calhoun himself. John and Rebecca stood on the porch as the men formed a line 20 feet away. Mr. Mercer, Calhoun said pleasantly, I believe you have something that belongs to me. I have nothing of yours. Calhoun smiled, pulling a document from his coat. According to territorial law, unclaimed homesteads with unpaid fees revert to the county. Mrs. Hale has failed to maintain residency or secure legal protection for her property. That's a lie, Rebecca said. It's law, my dear. Calhoun's smile turned sharp. Unless you can prove protected residency, which requires a lawful marriage or registered guardianship to see, land is forfeit. He folded the paper carefully. The circuit judge won't arrive for 3 months. By then, the land will be legally mine. John stepped forward. She's under my protection. Are you married to her, Mr. Mercer? Silence. I thought not. Calhoun gestured magnanimously. I'm a reasonable man. Leave now. Mrs. Hale, I'll give you $200 for your trouble. Stay. And I'll take everything including this cabin and Mr. Mercer's land for harboring a fugitive from debt. The sheriff, a weak-chinned man named Foster, nodded nervously. It's legal. John. I got the papers right here. Rebecca's hands clenched. You forged those documents. Prove it. Calhoun's voice went cold. Leave by sunset, or my men will remove you, by force, if necessary. He turned his horse, confident in his victory. That evening, John rode to Samuel Chen's ranch. The older man met him at the door, face troubled. I need you to testify, John said. Tell the judge about Calhoun's threats, the forged papers. Samuel looked at the ground. I can't. John, you're an honest man. I got 3 children. Calhoun controls the bank, the store, the freight contracts. Samuel's voice cracked. I help you. I lose everything. I'm sorry. I truly am. John rode back in silence, the betrayal cutting deeper than Calhoun's threats. He found Rebecca packing by lamplight. What are you doing? She didn't look at him. I'm leaving at dawn. This has gone far enough. No. John, they'll burn this cabin. They'll kill you. I won't. You're not leaving. She spun to face him. I've already destroyed everything. Thomas is dead because of that land. I won't let you die for it, too. He grabbed her shoulders. This isn't about land anymore. It's about you, your life, your right to exist without running. But you'll die. Then I'll die doing something that matters. She shoved him away, tears streaming. I can't lose you too. I can't. The words stopped him cold. Outside, orange flames suddenly lit the night. They ran to the window. The outer fence was burning. Calhoun's men had come in darkness, torches bright against the black sky. The message was clear next time. The cabin. Rebecca wrote a letter by candlelight while John slept. She folded it, left it on the table beside the deed. I'm sorry, she whispered. I can't watch you die. At dawn, she slipped out and took his horse. John woke to find her gone. John found the letter on the table. I can't let you sacrifice yourself for dirt and paper. Thomas died for me once. I won't allow it twice. Let Calhoun have the land. I'll disappear somewhere he can't find me. Thank you for giving me a reason to fight. I'll remember that. I'll remember you. He crumpled the paper, rage and grief flooding through him. Then he saddled his second horse and rode. Rebecca had several hours' lead. But he knew this country. She'd head south, toward Denver, where she could disappear into crowds. He rode hard, scanning the horizon. But first, he needed to make peace. The churchyard stood on a wind-swept hill overlooking the valley. 2 simple wooden crosses marked the graves: Emily Mercer, beloved wife; Sarah Mercer, beloved daughter. John knelt between them, hat in his hands. I couldn't save you, he said quietly. I've lived with that for 3 years. Lived like I was already dead. Just going through motions. The wind carried no answers. But Rebecca, she's alive, still fighting, still hoping. His voice cracked. If I let her run, if I let Calhoun win, then Thomas died for nothing, and I'll have failed again. He pressed his palm to the cold earth. I have to save her, not because it'll bring you back, but because maybe that's how I come back, how I start living again. The sun broke through the clouds, warming his face. He stood, placed his hand on each cross. I'll always love you, but I have to let you rest, and I have to stop dying with you. He rode south. Rebecca reached the river crossing at dawn, the place where Thomas had made his stand. She dismounted, staring at the water. I'm sorry, she whispered. I keep running. I'm always running. The river flowed cold and indifferent. She thought of John's words. You want to honor his death. Then live. Fight. She thought of John's hands teaching her knots, his quiet strength, his broken heart learning to beat again. She turned the horse around. They met on the trail as the sun climbed higher. John blocked her path, his horse sideways across the narrow road. You came back, she said, stunned. You're not leaving. John, we're not giving them a damn thing. Not the land. Not your life. Not one more inch. His voice was steel. If Calhoun wants this fight, he'll have it. But we fight together. She slid from her horse, walked to him. I can't lose you too. Then don't. He dismounted, faced her. Fight with me, she broke, collapsing against his chest. He held her while she sobbed for Thomas, for herself. For 3 years of grief finally finding release. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. Then why are we doing this? John tilted her face up. Because we deserve to live, both of us, and because some things are worth fighting for. She searched his eyes, found certainty, strength, and something else. Something that made her heart ache and hope simultaneously. Together, she asked. Together. They rode back toward the cabin, side by side. The sun climbed higher, turning the melting snow to diamonds. Behind them, 2 graves rested in peace. Ahead, a war waited, but they would face it standing. They reached the cabin at noon. An old man sat on the porch, weathered, gray-bearded, wearing a tarnished badge. John tensed, then relaxed. Marshal Briggs. John. The old man stood, shook his hand. Heard you got yourself into a situation. That's one way to put it. Marshal Briggs looked at Rebecca. You must be Mrs. Hale. I'm sorry about your husband. He was a good man. You knew Thomas. Met him once. Honest type. Didn't deserve what Calhoun did. Briggs pulled a telegram from his pocket. I sent word to the territorial governor about Calhoun's land schemes. He's operating similar games in 3 counties. Hope flickered. Will they stop him? They'll send a federal marshal, but not for 3 days. Maybe 4. Briggs looked grim. Calhoun knows help is coming. He'll move tonight. Finish this before the law arrives. John checked his rifles. Then we hold against 6 armed men, maybe more. If that's what it takes. Briggs studied him carefully. You willing to die for this? I'm willing to live for it. There's a difference. The old marshal smiled slightly. Good answer. They spent the afternoon preparing. John reinforced the door, positioned rifles at each window. Rebecca loaded ammunition, filled buckets with water in case of fire. Briggs took position on the porch, his old Sharps rifle across his knees. At sunset, Samuel Chen rode up the trail. Behind him came 3 other ranchers, weathered men with families, men who'd stayed silent when John needed them. Samuel dismounted, shamefaced. I'm sorry. John, I was afraid. But my son asked me what kind of man lets an honest woman get run off her land. What kind of man hides while his neighbor fights alone? He held out his hand. I don't have an answer, except I'm here now. The other ranchers nodded. We're here too. John's throat tightened. He gripped Samuel's hand. Thank you. They formed a line, 7 people against whatever was coming. The riders appeared as darkness fell. 6 men, torches blazing, led by Calhoun himself. They stopped 50 yards away, confident in their numbers. Calhoun called out, Last chance, Mercer. Hand over the woman and the deed. Walk away alive. John stepped onto the porch, Rebecca beside him. Marshal Briggs flanked them, then Samuel and the others, guns ready. We're not going anywhere, John said. Calhoun's face twisted. You'll hang for this. Rancher. All of you. Maybe. John raised his rifle. But you'll be dead. Calhoun reached for his pistol. John fired. The shot kicked dirt inches from Calhoun's horse. The animal reared, nearly throwing him. Next one goes through your heart. Your choice. Sheriff Foster, pale and trembling, held up his hands. This isn't worth dying for, Mr. Calhoun. You coward. They've got the high ground and twice as many guns as you promised. Foster backed his horse away. I'm out. Two of Calhoun's men exchanged glances, then followed the sheriff. That left 3 hardened gunmen who'd kill for money. The tension stretched razor thin. Then Marshal Briggs stood, his voice carrying authority earned over decades. William Calhoun, you're wanted for land fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit murder. Federal marshal's on his way. You can ride out now, or you can die here. But either way, your game is done. Calhoun's hand hovered over his gun. Don't, John said quietly. I've buried enough people. For a moment, murder blazed in Calhoun's eyes. Then he yanked his horse around. This isn't over. Yes, Rebecca said clearly. It is. Calhoun and his remaining men rode into darkness, torches guttering out. Silence fell. Then Samuel laughed, nervous, relieved, alive. The others joined in. Rebecca leaned against John, trembling with adrenaline and disbelief. We did it, she whispered. No. John turned to face the others. You did it, all of you. They kept watch that night, but no one returned. At dawn, Rebecca stood on the porch, watching the sun rise over land she'd fought to keep. John came to stand beside her. Thank you, she said, for everything. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You gave me a reason to fight when I wanted to disappear. He took her hand. You gave me a reason to live when I'd forgotten how. They stood together as light spread across the valley, 2 people who'd lost everything, learning to build again. Spring came fully in March. The cabin stood expanded, now a new room added, a proper porch built, windows that let in light. Neighbors who'd once stayed silent now helped raise beams and lay shingles. The community had found its conscience, and they worked to make amends. The federal marshal arrived on a Tuesday, arrested Calhoun on 14 counts of fraud, and validated Rebecca's deed without question. The territorial judge apologized for the corrupt sheriff, promised reforms, and left praising John's courage. But the real changes were quieter. Rebecca planted a garden in the thawed earth: tomatoes, beans, wildflowers Thomas had loved. She spoke his name without crying now, remembering his laugh instead of his death. John visited the churchyard one last time. He told Emily and Sarah about Rebecca, about the fight, about learning to love again. He felt, for the first time in 3 years, that they'd approve. One evening, while Rebecca cooked dinner, John carved 2 names into the cabin's doorframe: Emily and Sarah Mercer on the left, Thomas Hale on the right. Rebecca found him there, knife in hand, tears on his weathered face. What are you doing while remembering them, honoring them? He set down the knife. They brought us here all the grief, all the loss. That's what led us to each other. She touched the carved names gently. Do you think they'd approve of us? John pulled her close. I think they'd be glad we're not alone anymore. She kissed him soft, certain, unafraid. I love you, she said. I don't know if I should, or if it's too soon, or I love you too. He smiled, the expression still new on his face. Thomas bought you life with his... I'm just trying to live it with you. They stood in the doorway of their home, no longer a fortress, no longer a place of solitude. A sanctuary built by hands that had learned to hold each other instead of grief. Outside, wildflowers bloomed across the valley. The creek ran full and clear. Samuel Chen and his family waved from the road. heading home after a day's work. Rebecca leaned against John, his arm around her shoulders. "We should name it," she said. "The ranch. What would you call it?" She thought of Thomas and his sacrifice, of John and his courage, of spring following winter, always. Second chances. John nodded slowly. "I like that." And the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Two figures stood silhouetted in the cabin doorway, a rancher who'd learned to live again, and a widow who'd learned to stand behind them. Firelight glowed warm. Before them, land they'd fought to keep. Above them, stars emerging one by one, infinite, eternal, filled with promise. They'd lost everything and found each other. They'd faced death and chosen life. They'd built a home the hard way with blood and courage and stubborn hope. And in the morning, they'd wake together in a place worth fighting for, a place called Second Chances, where broken hearts could heal, and spring always followed winter, and love, earned through struggle, became the strongest foundation of all. The end.